Okay, hello and welcome to day 3 of 5 of the 2025 Scrabble Players Championship from the Live Hotel and Casino in Maryland. I am Josh Sokol. Joining me today is none other than Charles Reinke. Charles, how are you doing this fine morning?
Doing pretty well. Probably about to be doing a whole lot better because we've got a really good matchup for you coming up here. We've got Nigel Richards, the one, the only, needs no introduction, versus somebody who also probably needs no introduction, the one, the only, Mack Meller.
So, of course, Mack Meller, if you are unfamiliar, is last year's champion, 2024 Scrabble Players champion. Nigel has won this thing 5 times. He's back stateside for the first time in 7 years. Let's see if we can get an awesome game between these two. I think this is probably the most anticipated matchup of the entire tournament. Mack to go first. He is 3 games ahead of Nigel. You don't see that every day. Nigel had a rough start to the tournament. He's been working his way back up. I believe he was 5-5. Won his 11th game by 1 point and hasn't lost since. Oh, sorry. Let me fix that chicken scratch on the screen. All right, Mack to go first. And a blank the first tile he draws. Holy crap. He has a bingo.
He does indeed have a bingo. We know Mack's probably not going to miss this one. He'll maybe take a little bit of time to make sure he's not missing anything cool, but we expect this to hit the board pretty quickly.
Girthed, of course, the best bingo here. Righted, also valid, but would not double the H on one of those light blue double letter scores. So he just has to make sure he's sure of this word. This is actually a word that I think it was the last play I made in the Word Cup 3 years ago. But yeah, a weird adjective. I don't think girthing is valid.
Yeah, the other thing to note about
really
that is girthier is not valid either, which might make you think that girthed also wouldn't be valid, but Mack knows his stuff. This one comes down pretty quick.
Yeah, a great start for Mack. And Nigel to respond with EEMRTUY. I would look for options, but he's probably very quickly going to line up a very good play. Let's see.
He's got it kind of lined up in the middle of his rack. He's looking to play some of those letters through the H of girth. That looks pretty good here.
Yeah, RHEUMY, the idea for Nigel Richards, that maintains somewhat of an opening on this board. When you face an opening bingo, you want to keep lines open. You want to score a little bit. It's often not a great idea to make any sort of overlapping play, which sort of constricts the board. So Nigel knows exactly what to do. He has faced probably more opening bingos than any of us. So that's 28 points. And Mack to respond with ABELNQU. What are we looking at here, Charles?
Definitely looking to get the Q off as soon as possible. Luckily, Mack drew a U with the Q. That's going to make his life a lot easier. He does have 1 star play to the T of girth, which, again, we see him setting up pretty quickly. That'd be banquet. That seems like his really only option here, unless he wants to hold on to the Q for something else in the future. He does have that I in girth next to a double letter score, but that's not really helping him here, so he might as well just drop the Q immediately.
Yeah, Bankit looks really good, but Nigel, look what he's lined up. Retrace. That's going to go right down that second to bottom row, making retraced, and he's going to be right back in this game. So we have a banger to start things off. The two of these players have played 3 times total, Mack and Nigel. The current head-to-head record between them is 2-1 in favor of Mack. Of course, very small sample size, but it's very nice to have a positive record against the GOAT. He really does not want to cede that lead in their head-to-head record. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, I feel like Mack must be one of the very few people on planet Earth with a winning record against Nigel, even with the small sample size. I think there are some players who are 1-0 against Nigel, winning their only matchup, but it's still a scant few.
Yeah. So retrace is going to come down. Nigel just double checking the letters that were just opened. If that changes anything, maybe it does. Maybe he wants to play terraced instead. The only difference being what letter you put in this position. I think before the T was more dangerous for triple triples. Now that there are no triple triple possibilities, it is slightly better potentially to put the T there other than the R, rather than the R. So a slight deviation for Nigel. These things are obviously worth considering for a few seconds, but for you and me, Charles, knowing whether to put an R or T right there, it's kind of like walking into a forest and you can't see anything.
Yeah, definitely not something where you take 5 minutes trying to debate the merits of the R versus the T in that spot. You just kind of go with one. A little bit of intuition, a little bit of thinking will lead you to an answer there. We see Mack sort of with kind of ish bingo letters, but needs a little bit of work here. He's going to be looking to play off the O and the W, maybe underneath terrace right away. That keeps a pretty good leave. That's other than, hoping for a floating L for plowtail or something. Something like OW here is going to be pretty good for him.
Yeah, that's what he's looking at, and we see Nigel has drawn 2 S's, the Z, and a blank, which is actually insane. Mack ahead by 6 points at the moment, but I think within the next 2 turns, if his rack doesn't improve, might see Nigel taking the lead. So what's really crazy about this is if we had an R right here, Mack would be able to play warp for 39. But because Nigel placed that T, just made that slight deviation, he's going to save himself a few points on the scoreboard. And those small decisions really do matter.
Yeah,
Mack looking at Watt now, I think that makes a lot more sense. Score more points. Your leave isn't that much worse.
Yeah, I think the leave of AI LPT that he would have after OW really benefits from like open E's on the board, which currently does not have anything like that. So I feel like just going for a few more points here and keeping a leave that's pretty close makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. An open E would really, really aid that combination of AILPT. Mack going back and forth between the 2 plays. I think it's also worth investigating the fact that Watt will block this easy tucked away scoring spot. Nigel drawing 7 random letters, very likely to be able to hammer that spot for 30, 40 points. So you might as well get rid of it before you get hurt. We'll see what Mack does here. He is taking some time to deliberate.
Yeah, I'm doing a quick Quackle simulation on this. It slightly prefers OW, but it's a matter of a fraction of a percentage point winning chances. So either one seems good here, and we see Matt going for OW.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised by that. But I mean, shouldn't be surprised that someone with Mack's caliber, this level of intuition and understanding, would make the slightly best play. We see Nigel do that all the time, but he's not the only one that has Scrabble in his genes. Not to reference an unfortunate media thing that went on.
Oh yeah, that's a bit dangerous, Josh.
So Nigel looking at Lutz, that's what I was assuming he would do. Through that U of Rumi for 33, keeping both S's and a blank. He's super likely after that play to bingo through any of the open letters on the board. There are no S hooks right now, though.
Yeah, that is maybe the downside for Nigel on this turn is, while Lutz keeps very good letters, it's not immediately apparent where he's going to bingo for a ton of points other than maybe the G of Girth. Then again, keeping 2 S's and a blank, you're probably going to bingo somewhere with most draws. So he's still sitting very well here.
So Nigel actually considering sell here. Very interesting decision to keep the Z on his rack. I mean, it's such a powerful tool. He can draw into a lot of high-scoring bingos. I think from this G through this N. I think Mack very quickly going to play Litai. He has it lined up. Four-way overlap. He's going to score around 30 points with those not so great 1-point tiles. So Nigel draws an E and an F to his leave. So yeah, that scores a lot of points, SEL. 4, 8, 10, 28 points. I think worth it over the 33 for Lutz. Another thing about Lutz, Charles, is its hook.
Yep, the K is still out. That would be a monster, like 50-point play just for having the K. You don't really have to do too much else with it. You kind of just get 50 free points. So yeah, another reason not to play Lutz. And as you mentioned, Josh, keeping the Z does create a lot more upside for future bingos for Nigel. They're going to score a lot more if you can incorporate the Z somehow. So good idea by Nigel. And I also agree that Litai is probably going to come down relatively soon here. That's a perfect way to get out from underneath a selection of 1-point tiles that don't really have a ton of synergy together.
Yeah, one of the reasons it was okay for Mack to keep that 5-tile leave is the P very helpful to get out of some troublesome draws, but he doesn't even need the P for this one. In the chat, people saying, does Mack now know Nigel has another S? Probably. It could be that Nigel has just like 1-point consonants, but almost certainly when you see the play of SEL come down for only 28, you assume your opponent has another S. But luckily for Mack, he doesn't really need to think about that. As we said, there are no S hooks on this board. There's nowhere very nice to play an S. It's just something worth considering maybe for future turns if Nigel doesn't utilize it. So EF, OST, Z blank for the greatest of all time. He's looking at OF, and he is set up Zesty or Zests immediately, playing a 15-point move very quickly. Hopefully, Mack is awake and his alarm bells are ringing because that's a suspicious decision.
Yeah, that is suspicious. From Mack's POV, this looks very scary. Why would he do this unless he's got some plan for oft? And he will probably have to burn his blank if he wants to use it next turn, assuming it doesn't get blocked. But that's a perfect little 70-point play, catching in on the Z if it stays open. Mack's kind of worried about if he tries to block it playing underneath of playing something like MAP, making Yam. That doesn't actually do a whole lot for him now that he's probably sussed out that Nigel has another S. He can't set up an S hook in the triple. That would be maybe more dangerous than the T hook that's currently sitting there. So Mack's going to have to think about this.
Yeah, that's right. It's like you might have some suspicions about what's going on, but what are you supposed to do? Maybe play something with oof and just like play ammo here? But then you're setting up the Z like this. This is actually such a good play by Nigel Richards. And look what he's drawn. He's drawn into Gaussius. It's not just Zest blank that he's set up here. Again, those potential bingo options from the G were in play when he played OF. Such an amazing play. I'm sure it's the best play by a huge margin.
Yeah, that's what separates players like Nigel and Mack from, the rest of us. I'm not including you and the rest of us, Josh. I'm just including me and the rest of us. Those sort of out-of-the-box plays that actually are so genius, set you up so perfectly, work out so often. We see it worked out perfectly for Nigel.
Yeah, and it's so hard to like deal with this. If Mac has a T, okay, but aren't you opening something huge in response by playing something with oft? If you're underlapping, you need specific letters. YO is hard to underlap. You need a D, an M, a K. And then what are you doing? Are you opening another triple? So Mac has a lot to think about here. He's thinking of just playing Palm. That keeps a very nice leave of APST, and whatever's going on here, he might hit it first. He might get the responses himself. So this is very interesting board dynamics early on in this game. But Max ahead by 24. So he's got to feel pretty decently here, but he's about to get hit by like a 100-point bingo.
Yeah, Mac doesn't know the danger he's in quite yet. He kind of suspects it. He doesn't know exactly the fact that Nigel has a huge bingo from the G. In fact, he has no inkling at this point that Nigel has a Z. He just has an inkling that Nigel has an S and probably a T for oft. So something like Palm actually is pretty nice for the reasons you said, Josh. If Nigel does hit something involving oft, by necessity, it will open up a triple word for Mac to hit back. And if he's keeping something like nice like APST, lots of E's and I's in the bag to turn that into bingo letters, it's very possible that Mac would bingo back in response. So I think this is a really good idea for Mac.
And not only that, setting up Yomp for himself with that second P. He knows Nigel can't have a hook to YOM. And honestly, I would have considered Map in the same spot. The problem with that is it opens a huge lane, and Mac already knows that Nigel has an S. And so Gauzy is coming down immediately. Nigel Richards, that is 101 points. That blank is an I. And we'll have to see what Mac draws, if he's able to bounce back from this or if he has to take a turn to score around 40, 45 with Yomp. Could even get 50 there.
Yeah, if Mac draws like some kind of marginal bingo that only scores like 60, being able to play Yomp for 40, keeping an S would be a very nice sort of wait and see type of play. And we see Mac actually now with 2 S's, so he wouldn't necessarily be too sad to part with one of them. He could do something like Pawns. It's kind of a weird sticky S4, P-O-N-S. That's the first thing that jumps out to me. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be looking for bingos. That EST just opened up by Nigel seem very, very potent. However, I'm not seeing anything immediately for Mac, so he might have to just take a turn to score some points. The problem now is what's going on here? Nothing. So if Nigel's able to make some sort of overlapping play, maybe a 2-turn sequence, the Spore is running out of space already.
Yeah, actually, we see Nigel won't need to do that because he has drawn Goatfish through the Gauziest.
My gosh. What? The goat drawing Goatfish out of the bag. You have got to be joking.
We couldn't have scripted it any better. Except he could have fished for it. He could have fished for Goatfish, but instead he just drew it on a 7-tile draw.
Are we actually live? Is this a dream? I doubt Nigel's ever played this word. This is a pretty low probability word. This might be the first time it has ever come up in a top level Scrabble game. So Pawns comes down for 41. I'm having difficulty keeping it together. Goatfish is going to come down. I really want to look and zoom in on Mac's reaction when this hits the board. Oh, yeah. Nigel is holding. Oh, never mind. I thought Nigel was holding. Maybe he's trolling. Fish. Look at Mac's face. Wow. Stone cold. I would be freaking out.
Well, a little bit more animated than Stone Cold, but certainly not to freaking out level. A pretty measured response from Mac on that one. This one is a real disappointment for Mac. He's going to be down by way over 100. This score's 96.
That's crazy. Well, there are no blanks left, and Mac has drawn WU, unfortunately. So it feels like this might be over sooner than we hope.
Yeah, this one definitely slipping away for Mac here, but he does have a really clever play through the A of Banquet and the T of Latai. I'll leave that as a quiz for the chat.
Yeah, so he's almost lined up this idea of playing a 9-letter word. So I assume he's already seen it. It's lined up on his rack. I was thinking he would play like AW and like set up a line here, but that's really dangerous. It makes this triple a lot easier to work with, and he's already down over 100. So I think taking some points, trying to get access to this part of the board, the top left of the board, so often left untouched in Scrabble games, just because of how the English language works, and he's found it. Cutwater, beautiful find.
Yeah, this is a great play. Takes a lot of creativity, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude not to get beaten down by the fact that you're trying to bingo and you drew UW. He finds a really nice scoring play, 34 points using both the U and the W. And as he said, Josh, now there's a little bit of upside on that top left of the board where previously that was going to be really hard space to utilize.
Yes, indeed. So keeping Mack in the game is Cutwater. It's 273 to 350. Nigel has lined up the play of buys through this open Z on the board. I wonder if he's going to change course, maybe play bide instead, or something like that to eliminate some counterplay to the right of goat. But yeah, still looking very good for Nigel, but there's still some game left to be played. At some point, if some play happens through this U, we could maybe see some potential openings for Mack Meller, who's drawn the J.
Yeah, it looks like Nigel's thinking about bide. I'm trying to figure out if there's any like big X play that could happen there. Obviously, you could just do something with OX, but I'm thinking more about AX. That would be kind of a difficult spot to hit, but it is probably the most likely spot for Mack to score a ton of points. So it makes a lot of sense for Nigel to just take that away immediately. He would be making GI, which means then playing to the left of Goatfish becomes basically impossible, trying to open up triples in that way, as you mentioned a couple turns ago, Josh. So I think this has a lot of upside in terms of controlling that area of the board for the rest of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a good call by Nigel, eliminating space, eliminating potential options for Mack. He's found his play of Joual through the U, which will set up an S, but keep 2 eyes with 3 more unseen to him. So if he can avoid triplicated eyes, Mack definitely has a chance back in this game. But with 20 tiles left in the bag, it's starting to get more important to go towards that game-tying bingo, which Mack desperately needs.
Yeah, I think this is really his only play. He's setting up an S hook. The 2 eyes are unfortunate. The chances of a triplicate eyes is looming. That would probably kill him in this game, but he's got to do something to open up another spot to bingo, and this does it pretty well. So not surprised to see that one come down pretty quickly.
Yes, indeed. Back to Nigel, up 71 points and up 8 minutes on the clock. He has AEKINNO. Curious to see what he does here. He has that K to overlap in this area of the board. And he's set up something even better, Kaizen.
Yeah, Kaizen just scores really well, considerably more than its other options, and takes out what I wouldn't consider that Eye of Gaussius to be a good bingo line, but it is certainly a bingo line. So it just keeps him moving towards exhausting the possible spots where Matt can bingo.
Yeah, and most importantly, it just scores so well. That is 38 points, bringing Nigel up by 109. Back to Mack, who has the X. Can he score with it? Can he leave certain options alive for himself? It's starting to get really tough. Maybe you play XIS, maybe even DXIS. You have to score something or you're just going to lose.
Yeah, there's not a lot of good X spots that keep the S. He could do something like X's through the E of Gaussius that scores a lot, but keeps letters that are almost never going to bingo. And he's playing his S, which he needs for the Jules hook. So he might be thinking about something like just XI next to Kaizen, but that would probably be fishy enough that Nigel would try to snuff out that S hook. So he's got a kind of a balancing act here, and I'm not sure which way he should go.
Yeah, it's kind of really unfortunate. I'm thinking about Deixis here, Deixis. The problem with this play is it leaves 5 tiles in the bag. So if Nigel has any play to this D after Deixis, it'll use 4 tiles just to hit the triple, leaving a tile in the bag and maintaining, I think, a large enough lead that he can outrun anything Mack throws at him. But this idea of, opening a new part of the board, leaving this area untouched and trying to get something big going is probably a good one. Mack's going to have to think about this. He has the letters for Deixis separated from that G. He's going to need a really, really good draw next turn, regardless of what he does.
Yeah, just leaving a G by itself feels very unlikely to result in a bingo. I guess one small upside there is there's still 2 unseen I's and 3 unseen N's. He could hit an ING bingo. That's maybe the only upside the G has as a bingo tile is ING bingos, but still kind of a long shot after something like Deixis.
So Deixis here, hooking onto Jouals, would score 43 points. Deixis here would score a little bit less, but I feel the positioning of playing down to Jouals is too risky in that this would be the only space left on the board. Nigel would probably be able to eliminate pretty much everything that is unseen to him in one move, with potentially an overlapping play or a short play that scores a lot of points. Yeah, desperation mode activated for Mack Meller here.
Yeah, I agree, Josh. Deixis making Jowls it's too easy to block everything after that, whereas Deixis to the right of Kaizen at least leaves 2 spots on the board to bingo. If your draw is perfect, you hit an 80-point bingo that's going in 2 spots, for example. That would be maybe the only way that Matt can pull this one out. He's down by about 110, so he does need to bingo. Bingoing has to happen at some point for him to be in this game. It's just kind of unfortunate that he's not able to do something more conventional here, like score 36 with the X, keeping the S, and maybe going for a more conventional win. Just not really doable here.
Yeah, I mean, we have these spots for the X, but it requires the use of the last S in the pool to actually make something happen and leave yourself with some options to bingo soon. So you could see XU for 25. That is an interesting option. You do draw into certain bingos with Jouals. I just don't know if they're going to be enough.
Yeah, that is actually a decent idea. There are 3 ends in the bag to draw dinghies after you just dump the X for 25. So that would be a tempting option. It's unclear whether that would actually be enough. Scoring 40 with Deixis gets you close enough on the scoreboard where a decently high scoring bingo could still keep you in the game. Whereas if Nigel just keeps up the scoring on his next turn, he's probably going to do something next to Kaizen, just annoy, maybe something like that. It's going to score too many points.
Yeah, he's, I think, looking at Yaud right now, YAUD, which wouldn't open anything and score super well. So it's looking very tough. Even if Mack plays Deixis, putting that S there will not prevent Yaud from coming down. But Mack could still draw something huge out of the bag, and there's enough marginal space on the board that I think with a few tiles unseen to Nigel, he won't be able to block absolutely everything available. And we know Mack's knowledge of 9-letter words comes in handy quite often, and certain boards tend themselves better to 9-letter words. This isn't really one of them. There could be maybe some crazy word to OD or some word through this disconnected T and S that might come in handy, but those wouldn't score enough to really threaten victory over Nigel Richards. So Mack, considering his options, he's under 5 minutes to play. He's going to have to make a couple of moves still in this position. He's thinking about DXS, he's thinking about XU. He probably feels very much like he's going to have to take a miracle to win here. So he's going to take 40 points for DXS, a very nice find, and just hope for something really nice. Hope Nigel is saddled with some of those terrible tiles in the bag, VV, NN, etc.
Yeah, we're probably going to see Nigel just take the scoring play here. It's enough points where he goes up by roughly 100, a little bit more, and that will easily overcome anything that Mack has through the D. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I haven't completely calculated it. I don't know if like something like involved using both V's would do it. It might actually do it.
Yeah, involved would score 95 points. Mack is down by 69 right now. So if we imagine the play of Yod, 24, 26, 27, 31. So 35 points for Yod, I believe. That would put Nigel up 104. So involved coming within 9 points. I think Nigel's going to take that one no matter what Mack draws out of the bag, but he's just going to take some time. He has 17 minutes to calculate these lines. I think he really just has to worry about that word involved, which would score 95 points, but I think he can outrun that no matter what. We'll see what he comes up with here. As Mack is drawn terribly, it's just over.
Yeah, it is. Just, we see from our advantaged POV as commentators that this is totally over. Mack didn't draw the stuff he needed to actually get a bingo down. But Nigel doesn't know that. Nigel needs to do a little bit of calculation here. He is definitely one of the fastest, end game players out there. I feel like the slowest aspect of it might just be the tracking part. We see him with his tracking sheet, manually crossing off letters.
Yeah, he does this a lot in these pre-endgame situations. Before the pre-endgame, which is the current position of the Scrabble game, when there's only a few or fewer than 7 remaining tiles in the bag, you don't really need to rely too much on the letters you have tracked that have been played on the board. But in this situation, it's extremely important to assess, especially when you're ahead like 70 points, like Nigel is, assess the threats that you are facing. And we see him look at the unseen letters from his perspective, EEGIILNORRV, V, 2 V's, are unseen to him. And he's going to play Noddy. Wow. That's actually totally insane. What? $10 points for Naughty, blocking the biggest threats, but scoring 10 points?
Yeah, this feels a little bit weird because it scores so little that if Mack just had a smaller bingo, he would get back into this game really quickly. So that does feel it's very, very hard to say that Nigel ever makes an error. So I certainly would not want to say that, but I guess I'm struggling to understand it from my POV.
So obviously the biggest threats, like we said, were to this D in Dixis. My wonder is, are there no ways for Mack to play 2 tiles here and go for a bingo in 2 separate spots, like maybe through this L, maybe a 9-letter word, or maybe something here? I guess the space is close enough together that if that does happen, Nigel will have full information, and he will be able to figure out, oh, actually, Matt can only play 1 tile. Oh, I guess this makes sense. Since Matt can only play 1 tile, it's very hard to imagine something fitting in 2 spots, but even if it does, Nigel can probably block everything. But the speed in which he's assessed this is mind-boggling. I don't know what to say about that play, but really cool.
Yeah, I think Nigel's job on that turn would have been easier if he had something better to the D, but he didn't really have anything. Nadi was really his only option. But he did play 4 tiles, as Josh mentioned a while back, leaving Mack with a difficult situation where he's got bad bingo tiles, and if he wants to try to get a bingo, he can only play off 1 tile, or he's only going to have 6 on his rack, and it's not, or he's only going to have 7, and all his stuff's going to get blocked. So. As we talk about it more, that play of Nadi does make some sense. It's just a more human player like myself would just want to go for the 36 points and, brute force outrun my opponent rather than doing this creative defensive mechanism.
Yeah, another thing about this position is, I guess most of Max Bingo's involved 1 or fewer Vs, and if the V were the last tile in the bag, there would only be 1 spot for it in Voss. So that could have come into play as well in Nigel's thought process. But it's going to take me like hours to analyze this position. I don't. That's crazy. That's an amazing play of Nadi for 10. Mack getting up, playing Vigor, drawing the last V in the bag. I think he only has 1 outplay here of Vil, potentially. And Nigel's going to block it, looks like.
Yeah, it looks like that is indeed Max only out. So we fully expect Nigel to block it, and Max probably just going to have to drop his V with Voss.
He played that in 50s. How does he do this? What? Nigel knows that Mac can't block ante, or else he gets stuck with the V? Like, what? What is this? How did he do that so fast?
Max just kind of nodding, like he sees exactly what's going on. He's powerless to stop it. We all feel a little bit powerless in the face of Nigel Richards.
Like, I get it, of course, but it would take me like four minutes to just see, like, okay, am I going to be able to go out with ante here? Yeah, if Mac tries to block with like TIL, there isn't a second outplay for Nigel Richards that I can see, but then he just plops down an A or something, and Mac can't play his V. So he's going to play Voss for 14 with 4 seconds, 3 seconds on his clock. Nigel will go out with ANTAE for 17 points, bringing the total score to 458 to 391 in Nigel Richards' favor. Below 14 minutes, he's used over 11 minutes. That's a lot of time, isn't it?
Yeah,
let's look into the overhead mic. Let's see what they have to say, if anything.
Yeah, nice end game there. Yeah, it's not worth it for me to block, right? Because then I get stuck. Yeah, if I play till, then you just get more. Yeah, there's nothing to fish for at this point, so I figure just cut spread. Yeah, that's a little too much for me to overcome the 1, 2 of those. Yeah, I had the other T when I played this, so yeah, that was good, but can't make up 202 turns. Well done.
Looks like that might be it for the post-mortem. I don't know. Yeah, I guess we're just going to wait for the score slip to be signed. Mac and Nigel couldn't be any different in their post-game antics. Mac loving to analyze. Nigel has almost nothing to say. But both of these players have something very much in common, and that is how amazingly they play Scrabble. So Mac going down to 12-3. Nigel is going up to 10-5. So a very important game for Nigel Richards, who was behind 3 games in the standings. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you're not entertained, not sure what we can do to help. Charles, what do you have to say about that game?
Yeah, I would say if that did not entertain you, you're beyond hope. Scrabble must not be for you, because I think that was a really well played game from both sides. In fact, I would say pretty much perfectly played from both sides. Nothing really could be characterized as a mistake. So that was Scrabble at its finest. We just saw it happen, and was very honored to be a part of it.
Yes, indeed. So we will have some respite from these two players that we've just featured on stream. Potentially the most anticipated matchup in this year's championship, other than maybe Will Nigel. But we already saw that one. So super, super stoked for the next matchups. We might see these two in the finals. Everybody vying to win after 28 rounds, two top players. The two players at the top of the standings will play a best of 5 finals, and the rest of the field will play 3 games. So